Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for a very special and exciting Barbados webinar. My name is Anna. I'm an industry relations specialist here at CLIA, and I'm going to just quickly go through some housekeeping before introducing our presenters. The webinar will run about 50 minutes with time for questions at the end. Please feel free to type your questions into the questions module of the webinar, and we'll get to them at the conclusion of the presentation. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on CLIA's YouTube channel, which is CLIA Global. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce our presenters, James Blades and Corrine Cole. James is a tourism, marine, and heritage resource specialist and is a founding member of the Barbados Garrison Historical Consortium. This is a nonprofit organization created in 2006 to assist with the development of Barbados' historic garrison, which is part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. The consortium stimulates interest in the site and helps with development, fundraising, and marketing. Our next presenter is Corrine, an attorney at law and founder of Lick the Bowl Food Tours. She's a Jamaican national who has called Barbados home for the past 15 years. She loves Barbadian cuisine and so jumped at the opportunity to establish a food experience company upon the suggestion of her sister and business partner, Camille, who is a frequent visitor to the island and suggested that they start a food tour business in Bridgetown, having enjoyed her experience of a food tour in Rome. It is Corrine's goal to develop and grow Lick the Bowl Food Tours into an operation that offers a panoply of food experiences that can be franchised regionally. And finally, helping to facilitate all of this, we have Tia Bruce, who's a business development officer for Tourism Barbados. And with that, take it away.
Thank you, Anna. Good afternoon, agents, and thank you so much for joining our webinar this afternoon. It's a pleasure to have you. We are here to supply you with some very detailed and rich information on the garrison, which sits as part of our UNESCO World Heritage area, and also the delicious delights that are available as part of the Lick the Bowl food tours in Bridgetown and their other experiences. So we're going to start off with James.
So hello everyone, nice to be here talking to you a little bit today. The organization I work for is called the Barbados Garrison Historical Consortium, Inc. As was mentioned, it was created in 2006 to assist with the development of Barbados's historic garrison. So basically what I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk you through one of our tours, and that should give you a good insight into what this interesting area is all about. There's a rich history in and around this beautiful garrison. So first of all, let me say, you can keep going, Tia. Okay. What is the garrison? Well, it is part of our UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's 150 acres in size. It was established in the year 1789. That's an interesting date in American history because that's the very year that George Washington became the first president of the United States. So the British government at the same time established this military base on their most strategic island in the West Indies, Barbados. It operated until 1905. That's 116 years in total, and that garrison at the height of its operations housed as many as 4,000 British soldiers. What you're looking at here is an officer's barracks that was built in 1791. The front facade was added on about 25 years after the original barracks was built. And it was built on to protect the windward side of the building because the officers' lives weren't very comfortable in there because on the windward side, that's where the weather comes from. And during weather conditions, they had to shut their doors and windows and life wasn't very bearable. So they built this huge veranda on the windward side, and it was a feature that started in Barbados at this garrison, and it's one of the main reasons why Barbados's garrison is part of our UNESCO World Heritage Site, because this architectural feature, which started here, was then used throughout British garrisons throughout the world at the time in tropical climates. So there is another magnificent building that looks like one of the blocks up next to the museum. So this would be a soldier's barracks, maybe barracks block A, or it could be block B. Thanks to you, you can keep going. And there you go, it's part of our UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's part of our UNESCO World Heritage Site because also it is the most complete and authentic 18th, 19th century British garrison found anywhere in the world. The Indian garrison in India was a much bigger garrison, same time frame, but only 10% of that garrison still stands today. 80% of ours is still in good condition. Where is the garrison? Well, it's in the beautiful island of Barbados. It is connected to the other part of our UNESCO World Heritage Site, which is our capital city, Bridgetown. So total acreage of the site, 450 acres. Bridgetown is 300. Our garrison is 150 acres. There it is again. You can keep going. There's a nice overview of it. Many people in Barbados think when they hear the word garrison that it is just like the area where we have our horse racing circuit. The actual circuit is surrounded by many of the barracks buildings of the garrison because that was where the soldiers lived. And the horse racing circuit and the barracks, the living quarters of the garrison, were located in the upper lands of the garrison. There's a lower lands as well, the lands down by the harbour, by the sea. And that peninsula of land you see sticking out right there with the red building right at the end, that is Charles Fort. Right at the end there, Charles Fort was a fort that was built in 1650 to defend the entrance of Bridgetown's harbour, which at the time was one of the most important harbours in the world because the British were making a ton of money out of the West Indies through the production of sugar. And that's a very interesting story, how sugar got started. It started in Barbados. Slavery made sugar accessible to the masses and the demand for sugar exploded. And between 1650 and 1838, sugar was the most important commodity in the world. And that sugar, the production of sugar basically came out of the West Indies. And there was a huge power struggle over these little islands in the West Indies. There's the Savannah, the horse racing circuit. This was actually a parade ground during the garrison era. Remember, the era began in 1789. It ended in 1905. That's 116 years. This is a 30-acre parade ground, and basically the troops lived all around it. There it is again. You can see how close the sea is to the Savannah. The house that George Washington spent 7 weeks in, right there, was located 400 meters away from Bridgetown Harbour. So essentially, George Washington could sit in his dining room and see everything arriving into Bridgetown Harbour and departing from the harbour. And that helped him later in life to make important decisions. There's the bathhouse of George Washington House. When the two boys, George and Lawrence Washington, were in Barbados, they stayed at this location because where they were intended to stay had been struck with smallpox. So they had to find alternative accommodation. They came here, they found this spot, they liked the view from the house of the harbour, and the two boys stayed here. George spent 7 weeks on this site. The reason they were in Barbados, by the way, was because George's older half-brother, Lawrence Washington, he was dying of tuberculosis. They had relatives in Barbados. The climate was good climate, and there was good medicine in Barbados because in 1751, when George was in Barbados, Barbados is one of the richest places on the planet. And wherever there's tremendous wealth, there's usually good medicine. However, it didn't work for Lawrence, and Lawrence would eventually die. So that's a little bit about George and his visit. What you're looking at here is actually a garrison feature. This is one of our garrison tunnels. There are 2 miles of these tunnels that riddle the upper lands of the garrison. And just to bring you into perspective here, George Washington was at the garrison before it was a garrison. He was in Barbados in 1751, 40 years before the garrison was established, almost 40 years before it was established in 1789. Another shot of the tunnel. These aren't very good images, but these are magnificent tunnels, by the way. and these tunnels were hewn out of the bedrock of Barbados. The Royal Engineers were responsible for the construction of the network of tunnels. The original designs, however, were designed by the governor of Barbados at the time. His name was Lord Combermere. One of the most famous secondary schools in Barbados is named after Lord Combermere. So the Royal Engineers built this network of tunnels, and the purpose of the tunnels really was to draw water off of that big savanna that you saw there, because during the rainy season it filled up with water. It became a breeding ground for yellow fever and malaria, and all the troops that lived around that savanna were dying. As many as 300 men died every month in the garrison. Barbados's garrison was known as the death hole. So Combermere designed this network of tunnels, and the tunnels were very effective. They drew the water off and dumped the water into the sea. And just on a side note, in 1979, the government of Barbados bought back 20 acres of the garrison and created the headquarters of the Barbados Defence Force. The first Chief of Staff, Colonel Leonard Banfield, sealed up the exits of the tunnels because they dumped into the sea. And he sealed them up because in 1979, 1980, 81, there was this Cold War raging, Russia versus the United States, and there was this fear in Barbados in the early 80s that Cuba was going to invade Barbados. So the colonel sealed up the exits. He made access for the water through large plastic piping under get into the tunnels and up into the headquarters of the Barbados Defence Force. In 1983, the United States liberated Grenada. It was all part and parcel of the same thing. So that's very modern history, but we talk about that on this tour as well. That is a monument. This is the monument that Tia just showed you there is a monument erected in honor of 15 people who died in the Great Hurricane of 1831. Many Barbadians believe that God is a Barbadian. We don't get hurricanes. Well, in 1831, that hurricane killed over 3,000 Barbadians. Okay, so this monument was erected in honor of 15 people who actually died at the Garrison Hospital, which is located in Hastings, outside of the garrison. Actually, it was located in a different location, but that monument is in honor of those 15. This is the general stores of the garrison, built in 1793. It's one of the best restored buildings in the entire island. I always like to say Barbados restored its UNESCO World Heritage Site, the whole thing, right back to this standard. I'd like to see the expressions on your faces now. What kind of attraction would that be to the rest of the world? I have to put in that little plug. Engineers Workshop, built in 1811, I apologize. This was a workshop. It was located in the lower lands of the garrison, and it was very close to the sea. This is the Naval Rum Stores, built in 1804. It housed up to 100,000 litres of rum. There's Charles Fort, right on the sea. All shipping, 99% of all shipping that landed in Barbados had to sail down the south coast, around this point, and into the harbour. It's one of the most important historic sites in Barbados. Not a lot of research has been done on it. There's a tremendous amount of research that still needs to be done on this site. It could probably be a UNESCO World Heritage Site all on its own. What you're seeing there in the background are cannon. They're just mounted on pedestals. The original guns would have sat behind the wall and just peeked out over the top of the wall. Those sort of the white guard wall that you see is a 1965 feature of this fort. When they built the original Hilton Hotel in Barbados in 1965, they put these sort of walls with these partitions in the middle to put them in place so that people didn't fall off the top of the wall of the fort. It's a very low-lying fort. In the foreground of the image, what you're looking at is an 1880 feature of the fort. It's an 1880 gun emplacement. This is where they had a large modern Victorian cannon. So cannon and other artillery design had been improving Over the years, so you have the old guns in the background, which could only go forwards and backwards. However, by 1880, they had 4 big cannon on this fort that could rotate and recoil and do those kinds of things. And that's what you're seeing in the foreground. There you go, another shot on Charles Fort of the fort. Another feature of the fort, the signal tower at Charles Fort. There's the military cemetery. So the big garrison with 4,000 men had to have a cemetery, and here it is. It went into operation in 1816. They built a wall around it in 1902 because the sea used to wash in and wash out the graves. But this is an active cemetery. Anybody who is a member of Commonwealth forces in the world can still be buried in this cemetery. It is cared for by the Barbados Legion, which is the retired arm of the Barbados Defence Force. Some more barracks. This is the West India Barracks, built in 1790. And interesting, this was a soldiers' barracks, and it's named after the famed West India regiments. The West India regiments were created by the British in 1795. Basically, they were a fighting force of men of color. These were slaves who were very able-bodied, who were freed, who were trained, and who were paid to fight for the British. The West India regiments operated until 1927. That's 132 years of service. And the first 2 Victoria Crosses ever awarded to men of color were awarded to members of the West India regiments. I believe my companion on the left here is from Jamaica. They were both Jamaicans, actually. These are the Iron Barracks. In 1842, this was sort of a prefabricated building. The British government wanted to get away from heavy stone construction. So what they started doing was building components back in England and shipping light components out to locations that would house large numbers of troops. They would assemble them easily, and this building would house those troops. This is one of a number of buildings like it in the region. There are buildings like this in Jamaica, in Bermuda, and in the Bahamas as well. The drill hall, this is a soldier's barracks built in 1790. It housed 400 men. And this building was stuck onto one of the walls of St. Anne's Fort, which is a 1707 fort that was built here. So you have the 1707 fort. We're actually inside of St. Anne's Fort there right now. What St. Anne's Fort is a keep. A keep is a last place of refuge. So it's like central. There would be outer walls spreading out all around it. And this would be the place that men would run into if the outer walls of the fortress were ever breached. So this is what we call a keep, or a last place of refuge. There would have been guns on all sides. This is a hexagonal keep. There are 6 sides to it. It was completely armed all around. There would have been a water supply. There was a powder magazine. There was a small barracks, and the entire keep was surrounded by a dry moat. And there you're looking at the walls of St. Anne's, and the stone roof that you see underneath is a small powder magazine that was built in 1800 to store powder for the British fleet. The British fleet, under the command of
James, are you there? I'm sorry, everybody. It looks like we lost everybody in Barbados. You hang on for 1 second. We'll try to get them all back.
Restored. Can you hear us?
Yes, you are back.
Sorry about that. We dropped out somehow. Go ahead, James.
All right, so basically what you're looking at are the guns along one of the walls of St. Anne's Fort. So the guns would have been located like this in their turrets all the way around the entire keep. So we're now inside of the Mermaid Tavern. This is that magazine I was telling you about that was built to store powder for the fleet. That room no longer houses gunpowder, of course. It houses a collection of cannon. So it is called the National Armoury Museum. That gun that you're looking at there is called the Cromwell gun, or the Commonwealth gun. It is one of the rarest cannon in the world. There are only two known to exist. This is one of those two. And it is rare because it still contains the crest of Oliver Cromwell. Oliver Cromwell, when he died in 1658, long before the garrison was ever established, when he died, a couple of years after his death, the king of, well, what Cromwell did in 1649 was behead King Charles I, and that brought the monarchical system in England to an end. Over the next 8 years, Cromwell ruled with an iron fist what is known as the Cromwell Commonwealth, but he died in 1658. His son came to power. His son lasted about 8 months, and the reason he didn't last long is because there were powers at work in England that wanted to restore the king. So they paved the way for Charles's son, who was in exile in Europe, to return to England and be crowned King Charles II. One of the things that Charles II did was remove every trace of Oliver Cromwell that he could find in England. And that meant removing the crest of the monarch, or in this case, Cromwell's crest, because every gun that was cast would have the crest of the leader of the country on the gun. So he removed crests off of guns as well. He missed two guns. One is in this collection. The other is in the National Armouries in Leeds in England today. What you're seeing in the background to you, just to draw it to your attention, is the Mermaid Tavern. The Mermaid Tavern was a small pub in Oistins, in which a very famous Barbadian document was created and then agreed on and then signed. It was Barbados's surrender to Oliver Cromwell in 1652, shortly after the beheading of Charles I. Barbados, which was an island who was loyal to the king, declared independence. They hated Oliver Cromwell. So Cromwell placed an embargo on Barbados, sent a fleet out to Barbados to enforce the embargo. After a blockade of about 2 months, because there was a strong militia on the island, Cromwell's fleet couldn't land. One of the governor's colonels betrayed him and paved the way for Cromwell's forces to land in Oistins, a southern town in Barbados. They landed, the stage was set for the battle for Barbados. But the governor of the island, after 3 days of heavy rains, decided to surrender. He thought maybe enough was enough, so he surrendered. The terms of surrender were signed in the Mermaid Tavern in Oistins. This is an important document. It's called the Charter of Barbados. The third clause in the document is called, it goes something like this, the third clause goes like this, that there will be no taxation without consent. Interesting clause. What it meant was the Cromwell in England couldn't tax the inhabitants of Barbados without the say-so of the local parliament. Barbados has the third oldest parliament in the Western Hemisphere. So they couldn't do a thing without consent from that parliament. Anyway, interesting stuff. And we know what led to the American Revolution, okay? No taxation or heavy taxation, and that cry went out, no taxation without representation. There is a connection between that 1652 document and that situation in 1775. This is 1804. This is the main guard. If you look carefully at this building, it is completely a brick building. Ballast brick was needed. Ballast is what came across the Atlantic in the hulls of ships. Ballast material was used to build buildings. But weight was necessary to stop ships from keeling over. They put a lot of weight down in the bottoms of the ship so they could make that long cross-Atlantic journey. So basically, this building is built completely out of brick. It basically was the central location in the garrison, 5 minutes. And it was built completely out of brick. This is where they administer security in the garrison from. There it is again. That's King George III monogram on the high up on the wall behind. This is one of the activities that we provide in the garrison, or I should say the government of Barbados provides in the garrison every Thursday at 12 noon. These men are wearing uniforms that were hand-picked by Queen Victoria in 1856 when she was at a parade in Paris. She saw a French Algerian tribe, it's an African tribe, wearing these uniforms. She liked it. She wanted one of her regiments to wear it, and the West India regiments were selected. There they are in action right in front of the main guard. And there's the end.
Thank you so much, James.
All right, you're welcome.
Lots of useful information there on the garrison. Yeah. Lots of rich history in that area. So Karen is going to tell us all about Lick the Bowl food tours.
Good day, everyone. I really do appreciate the opportunity to introduce you to Lick the Bowl food tours. We were formed in 2017. My sister suggested it because she had gone to Rome and experienced a food tour, and she said, "Corinne, we must do this." And I began to investigate, and I learned that food tourism is actually what was, perhaps we're a bit behind the 8 ball, but food tourism is growing. It has grown in the last decade at least. People, it's trying to say people travel to eat food, right? But it's increasingly the case where people are choosing a destination because of the food, and curated experiences around food are becoming more and more popular. And that demographic, the people who want a local experience around food are the people we're catering to. We offer 3 products. The first of which is the Bridgetown Food and Heritage Tour. All right. As my colleague would have mentioned, Bridgetown is a UNESCO Heritage Site, so it's rich in history. And it's actually an excellent tool to conduct a walking tour. And most food tours are walking tours. So we're able to couple the sampling of cuisine with walking through a very history-rich port town. So it's actually ideal for cruise passengers. And we have 3 sites which we stop and sample. So we sample everything from pudding and sauce, cuckoo, local treats. And you would think that, invariably you think that the bulk of the people who come on a food tour are foodies, but that's not necessarily the case. It does attract people who are who want to see other people try food. They're not adventurous, maybe their partner pulled them onto the tour, all right? But we find this tour to be very accessible. Everybody can walk and eat, all right? So it caters to a large enough crowd of people. It's 2.5 hours, and as I said, we try to give them the gamut of local cuisine. The path of the tour goes through the sides of the beaten path of Bridgetown. So we try to avoid the main strip, which is kind of easy, more commercial. We take them into rum shops and dives and eateries that perhaps visitors wouldn't be so keen to enter on their own, or even if they were bold enough to venture on their own, they perhaps would not be bold enough to know what to order, and definitely not know the history behind a particular cuisine. Our next offering is actually related. It's we're seeing some pictures there of our pigtails and people in a rum shop. And this is where we move from Bridgetown. We have a sampling. There's a rum shop stop in Bridgetown. Again, but still all around cuisine, rich history. This is actually a private group tour. apart from apart from our Bridgetown Food and Heritage Store, our other offerings are private group. We're again finding that people like the feeling. There's more of a movement to smaller group activities rather than a large bus tour. And so this is a group of people decide, okay, we want to be exclusive. Let's discover a bit of Barbados cuisine with our closest friends. So it starts in Bridgetown. We have a rum-stop shop there, and then we move along the west coast. And while traveling, they have samplings of Bajan bites, and they have a lunch in Spice Town, again overlooking the sea. On both our tours, we try to end near an eatery with a sea view, so to capture a full gamut of an island experience. Our third offering, actually again we have some photos there, is cooking like a Bajan. A lot of people, you'd be amazed at the number of people who want to. And I guess maybe it's not so surprising given the explosion of networks like the Food Network, but people who want to learn how to cook a Bajan meal. And they tend to be very strict. If your menu is not sufficiently reflective of an authentic meal, they reject it. So invariably I find everybody wants to cook flying fish and cuckoo. I haven't had anybody as adventurous yet to try pudding and sauce, but I know it is coming. So this is a 4 to 5 hour class where people come to a home kitchen and the menu has already been agreed on, and they learn how to cook a Bajan meal from scratch. And we normally offer a rum punch making portion of the class, and then people are invited to sit and enjoy what they've made. Now, when it comes on to having an experience that is immersive in culture, rich with insights, there are very few things, a food experience, especially a cooking class that is activity-based, is the sort of things that people relish, and the sort of things that people will go home to tell their peers about. Oh, I did this. I learned how to cook cuckoo and flying fish, and I have the pictures to prove it. So those are our 3 main offerings. It's our vision at this point to add more products that cater to our core ethos, which is to create experiences around local cuisine, authentic cuisine, because we believe strongly, and the people who come on the tour bear this out, that there's a strong core of people who are interested in experiences. It's trite. It's trite to say people who travel come for an experience, but a particular sort of experience. They want the sort of experience that they couldn't have had in another country. And when you feel that you're immersed in the culture of a particular country, trying its food, its local food, or cooking its food, that sort of experience can't be easily replicated. I think I'm under my time.
So do you want to tell us more about the stops on the Bridgetown food tour?
Right, yes.
The experiences that you offer for cruise passengers, if you supply transportation.
Right, so with the Bridgetown Food and Heritage Tour, it's a walking tour. So they do meet at Jubilee Gardens. Jubilee Gardens is not far from the port terminal. In fact, most people opt to walk rather than take a taxi, opt to walk to the meeting point. From there we move to Hunters. Hunters is a kind of, I don't want to say ramshackle or rum shop, but it definitely is. So it's definitely, most people when they arrive, okay, this is a genuine introduction to food and living in Barbados. And we move from there, and then along the stops we pass the synagogue. So they're not, there's flights. The food stops is definitely, we try to intersperse the food stops with points of interest, like the old courthouse, the synagogue. Then we move to Square Restaurant, which is more of a sit-down affair, and they try another. So for each stop, there's a different menu. We want people to feel that they've had a fairly wide spread of Bajan bites on this tour. So there's a different menu. So from there, we move to Square Restaurant, and then we moved down to Parliament Building. So we look at the historic Parliament Building. I think it was built in the 19th century. Don't tap me on the history on this. And then we moved. 1870, thank you. And then we moved to the Old City Bar, which I think has the honor of being the oldest rum shop in Barbados. And a lot of people identify. So we try our local beer, their banks, or something that's not quite local, but very popular local in Morby. All right, and then we move on to our final stop near the waterfront. Again, we pass a few more points of interest to that final stop. After our final stop, most people will offer, for all our tourists, our promise is to take them back to the meeting point. But most people offer, invariably, to sit at the final stop, relax, and perhaps journey on their own if they want to do some shopping into the heart of the town, or to take the taxis out to walk back to the port. So easily that's our most popular tour, and actually the most suitable for cruise passengers, especially for those who are fearful of, I think people have this phobia, if get me wrong, about missing the ship. Yeah. Right, when they can say that the port is within sight, or at least sprinting distance, even if they couldn't sprint, that helps at least assuage your fears about missing the boat. And then our tour starts at 11:30. It ends at around 2. So that it ends with enough buffer time for most people to make it well before the last call.
And what's the best way for agents to book their clients on the Lick the Bowl tour?
Well, through our website. We're on several platforms. We're on Viator, Expedia, but we actually have the facility via our website to make set up people as agents to sell our tickets. So actually we can set it up that you can sell our tickets for us, and then take the commission. Once your client pays you, and then send the net difference to us. In fact, our commitment to you is that you pay us a net rate, and whatever you charge a customer goes to you. So we actually have that facility on our website, and that is the avenue I would be most pressed. But we're available via Viator, Expedia, and you can make our bookings via the website.
Okay, so the cooking tour specifically, you normally cater to larger groups?
No, actually, so all our private group are definitely small group tours, right? Because it's necessarily people opting. The people who do a private group tour are people who want to come with family or friends, and that invariably is not a 30 group posse. Right, it's maybe about 8, 12. So I think they define a small group as anything under 30. Right, so with our bite of 2 towns, it's definitely around from 8 to about 14. Our cooking class is, our max number for that is 10 persons. So it's definitely for small groups, and there's a definite market for people who want to feel like something is intimate and exclusive.
Okay. Thank you so much, Karen. While we are on the topic of food, James, I want you to speak about Dinner with George.
Oh, thank you very much. So Dinner with George is an activity that was created several years ago, and it was created to provide a unique experience, a unique way of learning about George Washington's visit to Barbados and about the rest of his life, and how that visit influenced and shaped him later in life and took him to the American Revolution and eventually led to success there. But the Dinner with George is a maximum of 32 people. That includes George. So George actually sits at the dinner table, right in the center of the table, and he delivers George Washington's life story to 31 guests at a dinner table. It is a 5-course dinner accompanied by good European wine. Everyone in the house is wearing period costume, that's the staff. And the food that's delivered on this experience is all food that George Washington would have eaten while he was here in Barbados. There's no electric lighting. It's all torches and flaming and candles. And basically you're dining in the house that the man spent 7 weeks in 1751 when he visited Barbados. So it is a very unique experience, and we'd love to see some of you there. So come and visit us.
For agents who want to book this experience with their clients,
Yes.
what would you suggest?
Well, we don't have the sort of setup that you have on your website. We have a website where people can actually book direct through our website. Clients can book direct. Agents, we don't have a facilitation for agents through our website. So I'm not sure how to answer that question for agents. But your clients, while they're here or before they arrive, they can actually book the dinner online. And we pick them up at their hotel and we bring them to the site. The dinner starts at 7. We're usually finished by 10. And it's about $130 US per person for that activity.
You want to share the website with us?
Sure. Website. Thanks, Tia. What would I do without you? I always say that. Our website is very simple, www.barbadosgarrison.org. barbadosgarrison.org. You can see all of our activity on that website. So we deliver walking tours, driven tours, dinner with George, night tours as well. So
tell us a bit about that. Tell us a bit about the night tour.
Basically, the night tour is a walking tour through the garrison at night. Basically, the idea behind the walking tour came from a tour that I took in England many years ago called the Jack the Ripper tour, which was one of the best tours I've ever done in my life. I was walking on pins and needles the whole time. And it's sort of a similar concept because life in a big military garrison back at the turn of the 1800s wasn't very nice. You could get executed for just saying the wrong thing to an officer, for example. So we explain what life was like in this garrison. We look more at the sort of the challenges that troops would have had while they lived in the garrison. And we walk through the garrison from point to point. We highlight all the interesting history as well as talk about the experiences that people had, including executions. There was a murder in 1809. We actually do a dramatic theatrical presentation of that murder. So we throw in some drama as well. But it's a 90-minute tour, and we do that on Friday evenings. So, and Barbadians, it's a very cheap tour too. It's like 15 US to do that one. So it was really designed for Barbadians, but guess what? You get lots and lots of visitors as well.
Okay, thank you so much, James and Karine. Anna, we now open the floor for any questions.
Perfect. Our first question is from Valerie, although a lot of agents are wondering, do you have a seminar where agents can come over there and tour or see the area to promote it better?
This is for James?
I think it's for all of you.
Okay, can you say that again?
Valerie is wondering if there's a seminar where agents can come over to Barbados and tour it and see the area to promote it better.
Okay.
Okay.
You
I'll let James.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, they're fam trips. Is that what you're talking about, a fam trip?
Do they mean FAMs?
I think
or
so,
if they
yep.
visit the island on their own? Okay, well,
Do you have fam trips?
I'll answer both. So we do have a number of FAMs throughout the year. I would encourage all the agents who are not Barbados specialists to take our specialist course on Travel Agent University. The BarbadosEliteClub.com is the website. So when you become a Barbados specialist and you've logged your bookings, you can be selected for FAMs from whichever area you are from in the US. If you want to put in a special request to visit the island, you can do that as well. There's also the opportunity, if you do visit the island on your own, say on holiday, and you want us to help you set up some activities, or you can come see the office, we can host a seminar to take you through some of the experiences on the island. But obviously, first-hand experience is always the best experience. So if you do come to the island on your own, we can definitely facilitate you with moving around and visiting all the sites and experiencing a lot of what we have to offer. So those are the two options.
Got it. Perfect. Our next question is from Anna, who is wondering about the garrison tour. How many passengers are allowed?
Well, we don't ever not do a tour. If we have one person, we'll do a tour. And we've done tours. We've done tours. Are you still there?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, no problem. We've done tours up to as many as 100 people, but an average tour, we have our tour going out tomorrow. We'll probably go out with somewhere between 12 and 18 people tomorrow. It starts at 9, we're finished at 12:30. And it does take in all the main sites, George Washington's house, and we've talked about his experiences in Barbados, mainly on that part of the tour. Then we do the tunnels. We then get on a coach and we drive out into the garrison. Our first stop is Charles Fort. When we get there, we disembark. We go in, we talk about it. We get back on the coach. We go to St. Anne's Fort. We disembark. We go in. We don't give you a nice meal, but we do give you one of the best rum punches you'll ever drink in your life at the officers' mess at St. Anne's. When we're finished doing that, we then go into the magazine that used to store powder for the British fleet, and that's where the cannon are housed. It's one of the finest collection of 17th century English iron cannon in the world. We wrap up our tour in there. Basically, that's where we finish the tour, but on our way back to George Washington House, we pass the changing of the guard. So we stop, we let our clients get out and experience that activity, 15 minutes or so, then back on the coach, off to the house, and we're done by 12:30.
But you have a cafe in case people want to have lunch.
Nice, very good. So we have one of the highest rated restaurants in the UNESCO World Heritage Site in the Bridgetown area. It's called Coffee Barbados Cafe. It serves breakfast and lunch. It opens 7 days a week from 7:30 in the morning till about 5 p.m. and they serve great food as well. In an old stables, by the way, it's an old 1831 stables.
That sounds fantastic.
Yes.
Our next question is from Esther, who's wondering if you could repeat the dinner times with George again.
Okay, so the dinner starts at 7, and we greet you with a glass of champagne or a corn and oil, which is a very Barbadian drink, rum and falernum on the rocks. But it starts at 7 and we're finished by 10 p.m. So the dinner includes pickup from hotels, so we can pick up around 6:30. Everyone has a glass of champagne. The dinner begins at 7. We're finished by 10, and it's on Monday evenings. This winter, our first dinner will be on February the 3rd. It's a winter activity because of the cost of it mainly, and so we will not be providing it until the 3rd of February. That's our first dinner this winter.
So when James says winter, our tour season, which includes our cruise season, runs from pretty much the end of October until the end of April. So that when he says winter, that's the period that he's referring to.
Got it. And Tia, can you repeat the websites that you listed, specifically the Barbados Specialist link?
So it's the BarbadosEliteClub.com. BarbadosEliteClub.com, and the course takes all of 20 minutes. And after you complete the course, we will mail you the certificate as being an official Barbados specialist.
Perfect. This next question is from...
There are a number of benefits that come along with being a Barbados specialist. Not only the FAMs, but if you need support at your agency, if you're having events, any way that we can partner, so stuff like that.
Perfect. That sounds very useful. This next question is from Robert, who is wondering if there is access for people with disabilities.
Oh, absolutely. So with more and more people who are physically challenged or blind or hearing impaired, a number of sites around the island are improving their facilities to be accessible to those who are challenged in the various ways. So yes, we are, I would say, a pretty accessible destination. James, you can speak to your facilities, Karen as well.
Right. With our walking tour, we require a fair amount of mobility, but with the others where we include transportation, we can accommodate at least a collapsible wheelchair on both our other private.
Okay, and James, the garrison is pretty.
Pretty much the same, I would say. Mobility is necessary. However, as long as it is possible, we will try our best to accommodate a wheelchair. We can't really do more than one or two at a time. And that's for the full garrison tour. If you're just coming to do George Washington House, for example, the house itself is accessible. So you can actually come to George Washington House and have a tour of George Washington House in a wheelchair because it's accessible. So that's a part of our garrison tour. But the other parts of the garrison tour, you're going to be getting out of a vehicle, in and out kind of thing. You'll be moving around quite a bit from site to site.
But I'll say, generally speaking, that most of our sites on the island are accessible.
Okay, got it. Laureen is wondering if all the tours are offered in early October.
James, Karen?
Well, yes. So we have a minimum number for booking for, or I just speak to a Bridgetown Food and Heritage Tour. So once we reach that minimum number, we will offer our tour on every day except Saturdays, except Sundays and public holidays.
And what's the minimum number?
6.
Okay.
For the Bridgetown Food and Heritage Tour.
So,
but for the other private group tours, once you meet the group number, because for like our cooking class, we have a couple offerings for 2 persons.
right. But you're pretty much available all year round?
All year round, provided we can meet our minimum.
Okay.
Except now for the holidays and Sundays.
Okay.
We're also pretty well available all year round. Our Garrison Day Tour, which is our signature tour, which I just explained, is available every week on Tuesdays and Thursdays all year round. Our night tours usually operate from the first week in January or so through the winter season, right up to the end of, say, March, maybe into the middle of April. In terms of the Dinner with George, the Dinner with George is available on a private basis all year long. We open the doors to the general public in February and March during the height of our winter season. So people can actually book the dinner for those times every Monday evening on those 2 months. However, outside of that, it's on a private basis.
Okay, got it. And it looks like this is our last question from Valerie, who is wondering when the best time to come is in the summer.
Anytime.
Well, anytime. Barbados is open from January to January. We never close. And as James would have said earlier, I know a lot of the agents and their clients had concerns about hurricanes. If you look at a map of the Caribbean, we sit outside of the island chain. So we sit outside of the hurricane belt. So normally when hurricanes and tropical storms pass through the Caribbean, they pass to our north. So we haven't had a major hurricane since the 1950s. So that should help ease the minds of those who are concerned about the weather. But I would say for the summer, you should definitely come in the height of our summer festival, which is Crop Over, which marks the end of the sugar season. It's a festival that's been going on for the last, how many years? 100 years?
Well, not quite.
Well, not quite 100 years, but it's our major carnival. It pretty much starts from June and it runs to the first Monday of August, and it culminates with the big street parade called Kadooment on the first Monday in August. You have the big bands, the colorful costumes. Everybody knows Rihanna. She often comes home to participate in the big jump up on that Monday. And then of course we have several events that precede that, what we call fetes. There are a number of fetes and all-inclusive parties going on throughout the crop over season as well. So if you want to take in a bit of the activity before the big parade, we have our 4-day morning juve that happens the weekend before crop over as well. So lots of fun activities going on during the crop over season.
Yeah, could I just add to all of that? for very good food. We've got excellent restaurants all across this island. I've never tried the food tour, but I'm going to try it. So this is a great place to send your clients to. And I think the Barbados government and Barbadians in general are very eager to host new agents. We want you to come and look at the island so you can get a feel for it yourself, so you can go home and sell it better to your clients. So that basically is just a little overview of what this island has to offer.
Agreed.
Very good summary, James.
Right. So we hope to see you all. Yes.
I hope everyone goes to visit, and that wraps up our questions. I just want to say thank you all so much. Thank you, James and Corrine and Tia, for all of the wonderful information. And thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Yeah, have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your 2019.
You too. Happy holidays.
Bye.
Bye.